Thank you, Irene. So the purpose of this guideline is to assist the countries in planning and implementing animal identification and recording system. They took the user through a step-by-step decision-making, leading to the establishment of animal recording system. We tried to explain how to plan and implement animal identification and recording systems, both technically and operationally. And also in this guideline, we tried to inform on the necessary conditions for such development, their implications, and the possible time frame for implementing such system. For whom these guidelines are made? They are made for countries or organizations which are wanting to implement and develop such system, but have limited experiences or have a limited number of qualified staff. But more generally, they are made for stakeholders interested or involved in the planning and implementation of such activity. This could be officials of national or regional governments, research institutions, private sector, farm organization, etc., etc. The structure of the guidelines. As you can see here, these guidelines are divided in three parts. We have the first part, setting the scene, developing the concepts, and putting this concept into practice. Setting the scene, the purpose of this part is to give a background and the rationale for animal identification and recording, but also for these guidelines. The second section is about introducing the strategic approach for animal identification and recording. And this strategic approach is described here in the conceptual part, which is composed of 4 parts. The first part is animal identification and registration, which is section 3. Then we have section 4, talking about animal traceability. Then we have animal health information, and we have performance recording section. After this section is mostly conceptual, trying to explain the ideas behind every component. Then putting the concepts into practice means that how we are going to develop it on the ground. And the first step is developing the strategic plan, which is section 7. Then designing and developing the IT system, section 8. We have a section on the costing and benefits of such a system. We have a legal session, and we have, as indicated Alexander yesterday, how to implement the strategic plan. And I like very much what he said. We have a plan to strategize, we have a plan to execute, and we have a plan to implement. This is more or less the spirit here. So let's start directly with the first session, which is setting the scene. The first session in this part, it deals with the background and rationale. It outlines the potential benefits and beneficiaries of animal identification and recording, and gives an overview of animal identification and recording that has been implemented in a number of countries. These are developed. We have chosen examples from developed and developing countries, and highlighting the lessons from these experiences. One of the lessons of these experiences is the need to broaden the scope of animal identification and recording by adopting a multi-purpose approach. I think everybody talked about this yesterday. Then this section also reviews existing guidelines and their applicability in developing countries and in low and medium input system in particular, and for small-scale production environments. The second session is on strategic approach. So, and here the concept of multi-purpose approach is developed and extensively explained. This concept is based on the fact that animal recording is used to improve production, either through better management or breeding. It's also used to improve animal health and public health through traceability, but also through animal health information recording. It's also used to improve the livelihood of the people by better access to market and improve generation income through access to market. So as you can see, there are many uses and many benefits of animal identification and recording, and it's not just a tool in itself. It's a tool, but the benefits are several. But in order to have these benefits, we need policies, strategies, and legislations to implement such a tool. How we are going to translate this approach into a system? Its concept is very simple. This system has 4 components. The first component is the animal identification and registration, which is the backbone of the system. The second component is the animal traceability. The third component is the animal health information. And we have the fourth component is the performance recording. So this is how the integrated approach, how the system could be articulated. And we will see later on what it means. But this system could be physically in one database, but it could be also the integration by linking different databases together. It does not mean necessarily it's one physical system. What are the concepts behind this system? We start with the identification and registrations of animal. This section dealing with identification and registration of animal, the objective is to describe the elements of such a system and provide guidance how to choose the method of animal identification. Identification and registration actually means the identification and registration of the premises, the keeper and the owner, as well as the animals. The concept is quite simple. All these elements are linked together through the animal. The animal lives in a premise or is located in a premise. It's owned by an owner and it's kept by a keeper. So through the animal identification, we can link all these elements together in the database. Of course, this is just a schematical. There are several cases and several people can be the owner of an animal, or a keeper may be a keeper of several herds. But the principle in terms of building the database is that. So this is an integrated view of animal identification and registration. We have the premises, what we call the premises register, the owner register, the keeper register, and the animal register. And you can see all the type of the data that have to be inserted or you may need to be inserted in each register, like location address, geographical coordinates for the premises, the name, address, and ID of the owner, etc., and the animals, animal ID, breed, birth of date, dam, ID, etc., etc. So this is just an example of the type of data that the register may contain. Then we move to the next session on animal traceability. The animal traceability refers to the ability to access the history of an animal or a group of animals through all its life. We have seen this definition yesterday. This is the OIE definition. And the purpose of this section is to describe the type of animal traceability systems and their elements that should be developed, considering the local situation and the objective for which the system is established. Same thing, conceptually, animal traceability is controlling animal movement. If we consider that we have these two animals and one of them has a problem, a disease problem, by tracking back the movement of these animals, we can see where this animal is coming from, and then we can trace back this animal to the farm where it's located. And we are able to know what are the animals that were in contact with this red animal through all its life. That's the principle of the traceability or movement tracking. But in order to do that, we need animal identification. Animal identification and registration is therefore a prerequisite for a functional animal traceability. And that the animal traceability system cannot be developed unless the identification and registration system is in place. The section 5 of these guidelines deal with animal health information. Here also the purpose is to describe the elements of such a system and provide guidance on how they may be used and integrated with other relevant systems. I will not talk about this because this is what Paulo will be describing to you later. The performance recording section of these guidelines, before describing what's in there, I wanted to also recall that FAO has already published secondary guidelines for development of national farm animal genetic resources management plans. This is the animal recording for medium input production environment. So this publication was made in 1998, and the objective of this section was not to rewrite what was nicely written there, but it's more to put animal recording in more global context. So now we're putting the concept into practice. The purpose here is to develop the strategic plan. The objective of this section is to provide guidance on how to develop a strategic plan for establishing integrated multi-purpose animal recording system. And these are a number of tasks that we have listed, fully described how to develop such a strategic plan. Assess the current situation, identify the stakeholders and their needs, draft the strategic plan to establish an animal recording system. These are the tasks that have to be considered. Then we go to designing and developing the IT system. This is a project in itself, so and has to be well prepared and well executed. And you have here a list of activities or tasks that have to be considered when developing such IT system. Section 9 is about evaluating the investment decisions. The purpose here is to provide the user with a clear breakdown of the cost and benefits of animal identification and animal recording system, in particular focusing on identification and registration and traceability, where we have published data and we have cost estimates published. For the performance recording, it's much more complicated. This section also tries to find ways to reduce the cost, improve the cost efficiency of such system, but also look at ways how to share the cost between the different participants through different modalities that are collected through the different experiences in the world. And this section contains also a legal framework, and this was written by legal people working with us at FAO. It gives a model how country can draft such legislation for animal identification and traceability, or animal identification and recording in general. And then the last section deals with how to implement animal identification and recording. And same thing, the main idea that I would like to communicate here is that before any animal recording system be deployed in a large area, it's always advisable to test all its functionalities in a pilot area. This is really what everybody should do in order to avoid all potential problems later on. And both the pilot region and during the rollout phase, for both of them, the implementation activities should be scheduled or should be conducted in 3 phases: the preparatory phase, the execution phase, and the maintenance phase. And here we have the tasks or the activities that have to be considered for the preparatory phase. We have the task and activities for the execution phase, and the maintenance phase is just a continuation of the other 2 phases. So this is very roughly just an introduction to the guidelines, and I invite you to consult them. I will put the link to these guidelines later on. And I would like to just acknowledge the people who worked with us to develop these guidelines. I listed here all the people that have helped us to develop them. As indicated here, we had more than 200 people that have directly or indirectly contributed to development of these guidelines. Thank you all for your attention.